Hello. I'm just a few minutes late from popping on here at 5 o'clock. And actually I better grab a clock so I don't go over. Okay, so I see somebody popping on. I don't know if I should wait a few minutes. And as you're hopping in, I would love to know who you are, where you're from. If you have any lymphatic questions for me, I love those. And I will just start with an introduction about me while we're getting some people popping in. I saw 6 people, I think it was registered. So I am Nicole Worth. I am a lymphatic specialist. What does that mean? Well, it means that I am a massage therapist. I, in 2000, went to school for it. I think I was 23. Yeah. And I went to massage school, and I actually did learn manual drainage at that time. And at that point, I really only used it if I came across somebody that had an injury, like swollen ankles, things like that. I would do the light strokes that are manually done. And with tremendous results. I was always super, super impressed by how simple it was. And I'm going to finish my introduction. Please, as you're popping in, add who you are, where you're from, if you have a lymphatic question, and I'm going to scroll back through those as soon as I introduce myself, and we're going to kind of get, hopefully, a good crowd tonight that's interactive. I love questions, hate lecturing, and so I'm telling you all right now about me being a body worker. And so I got into specializing in lymphatic work, though, about 10 years ago. And really what it was is, prior to that, I had maybe 3 years prior to specializing in it, I started having more and more clients coming in that were having cosmetic surgeries, and I could feel that I needed more training. And when I looked to see where I would go for that, I found that because normally I would go to somebody's office and receive the work before I maybe would go and get the certification. Always kind of starting with my own personal health has been an integral part of running my practice and doing this for as long as I have been doing it. Is using my own personal struggles and studying how to heal them and then applying it to my practice. And so anyways, I ended up finding that I couldn't find anybody that specialized in it. They were like me, they had taken, a weekend class. And so I found that very frustrating, and I found other people that were frustrated by that. And so I always kind of at this point talk about how I had kind of a pioneering spirit, and I really just wanted to get some answers for myself and for all the people that I kept coming across that wanted to know more about their lymphatic system. So I'm so glad, Natalie, you're here. Auburn, I teach at a local skincare school. Oh, very cool. We love learning about lymph and skincare, of course. So I'm going to try to give you a lymph perspective today on our skin, and we're going to talk about the basics of lymph. So before I dive into that, I'm not alone in finding a lack of training around the the lymphatic system. Craniosacral work is also what I do. All the water systems are something that's super fascinating to me, lymph being one of them. So lymphedema, 6 quick facts on lymphedema. It's so crazy, but lymphedema is a chronic swelling caused by a buildup of fluid that occurs in the lymphatic system that we're going to talk about tonight, either because it's faulty or damaged. So an estimated 3 to 5 million Americans suffer from lymphedema, including many that are undiagnosed, untreated, and this happens all the time in my practice. People come in and they're like, well, I've been struggling with this for years. I've went to several doctors. It's just so much of a script at this point in my career. It's heartbreaking. So I am here tonight to share with you what I do know. And again, I'm not a lecturer, really. I like to think of myself as an educator, but it's usually one-on-one with one other person. And it's tailored to me feeling into their body and finding intuitively what's going on and getting answers through my hands for that. But I'm going to do my best to tell you what I do know, and that's why I would love it if anybody had any lymph questions specifically. I want to address any of those. Let's see. I'm going to go into the lymphatic system. We're going to go ahead and dive into it. So some of you may know that the lymphatic system a lot of people will refer to it as no pumps. I know what I wanted to do. This is so nerve-wracking, no audience. Okay, so I know what I wanted to do. I wanted to go over body work real quick. So over here, I'm going to flip it around. Over here, we're going to talk very briefly about body working beliefs. So number one is our body stores, what do you think it stores? Everything. So in the case of when we deal with a lot with trauma happening in the body, things are happening so fast, say for like an example, a car accident, that is often when that information, that 6 gigabytes of information for each cell, that's how much they store, each cell stores 6 gigabytes of information. It stores all of that, and then when it's appropriate, when the body is calm and it's turning on the immune cells and it's turning off the disease cells, the stressed ones, then it's going to actually deal with some of that trauma. And so the perfect example of this is when people get organ transplants. They have to be, injected with material to actually lower the immune response or whatever to something foreign in the body, so that it won't reject it, right? But then also people have found that when they got these heart, especially any kind of transplant, but especially heart transplants, that it actually will store information from the donor. So I always tell the funny one where this gal who got a heart that I read through my research, after her heart transplant, she started craving Snickers bars. And so kind of funny, because she later found out that it was a 7-year-old boy's heart that she had gotten. So obviously he was eating lots of Snickers. So I say this because this is really important to what is off the body, our aura, or our, there's so many different layers actually, and so many different ways to talk about it. But that vortex, that actually goes out really, really far. And this matters because this is actually the beginning of our immune system. What we sort of sense out here is also what happens inside our body. So again, the first one is our bodies store everything. The next one is our part is to show up. So we need to make sure that we do show up for our body. And how do we do that? We need to actually be open. We need to create space. One of the ways that we can do that, obviously, is through lymphatic work. And cleansing can't just be about detox, right? It has to be about putting in good things into the body. So when we talk about the lymphatic system, we actually, and people are like, yeah, I'm out here running or I'm walking or whatever. I'm out here detoxing my body. You actually, if you don't have the nutrients, you don't have the fuel to do the detox. If you don't have the space, if that lymphatic system is too congested, and we're going to go into that a little bit about how it gets congested, but if it's too congested, it actually won't even drain either. So before we can even talk about detox, we have to talk about all of the good things that we need to also get into the body. And some of the ways that we can do that is through body work and lymphatic work. So healing requires a witness. This is going to help us get all on the same page of understanding body work, and then we're going to go into how lymph actually works and why this is, over the 20 years that I've been doing body work, has actually come to be known to me. So again, our bodies store everything. Our part is to show up, be open, create space. One of the ways to do that is through lymphatic work. That healing requires a witness. So what this means is that, again, helping community really helps actually process things in our body. So when we internally process, that's one way, and definitely a highly effective way. But when we're in front of, and maybe I'm sure some of you guys can attest to this, where you've been in front of maybe an audience or something, and you share about how somebody died or something, something more sad happened to you, you process it at a deeper level and you start to cry, or you start to shake, or you have some level of emotional release. And then you might even say something like, gosh, I thought I was over it. And I don't know why this is all coming up. Again, it's an opportunity where the body starts to say, hey, we're actually creating space. We're actually becoming, like, we're taking stuff from our subconscious mind and we're moving it forward more consciously so that we can create words and sentences and paragraphs and share this with somebody. So one of the ways that I've found in bodywork is just having somebody else there, witnessing it, acknowledging it, creating that safe space. Then the body says, great, let's get to work. Let's identify some things. Let's bring some things up that maybe, an advocate. I think of myself sometimes in bodywork as an advocate for the person coming in, to process things. So, okay, so witness. The fourth and last one is that the body is powerful, just limited. Okay, so sometimes not really said very often. I think a lot of times people, when they come to a lymphatic therapist appointment, they've seen that the lymphatic system is breaking down. They feel maybe even trapped inside their body. They feel like they've been working on something forever, since they were a kid, or since that one incident, it just went south. And they're like, I feel violated by my body at some point. And this may not be you, but this is something that I do see in my practice, where it just feels exhausting that they've gotten to that point. They are very fatigued, and they're like, I need help. So one of the ways that I love to throw in this point 4, here's a little bit crazy, is adding in that actually your body is so freaking amazing, and it's been talking to you. And, at least at this point, if you're finding out and you're seeking out somebody, it's still talking to you, which is so great. It didn't fully break down. You didn't fully ignore messages that were in the body. And so I think that's really important. So with those, and if you relate to one of those more than another, I would love to hear it in the chat box. Again, as I go through the lymphatic basics, which is what I'm going to start right now, if you have any questions around that, please ask them, okay? So our lymphatic, and I would love to know if anybody's had a lymphatic massage. I always love to know that too. So our lymph system, most people know that there's no pump to the lymphatic system. And among us lymphatic specialists, we actually know that there is a lymphatic pump. So I'm going to let you in on this sort of super secret that a lot of people don't talk about. You'll even catch me maybe in a lecture later some other time, and I might say, well, the lymph doesn't have a pump, so blah, blah, blah. It's just very common knowledge, and what's unfortunate, that's kind of what happens a lot with lymphatic lectures or whatever, is that they're hearing somebody else lecture and then they're kind of regurgitating that information, and they don't have a private practice where they see it in action. So there is such a thing as a pump in our lymphatic system. So, and those are called lymph angions. I don't know, let me know if you guys want to see the spelling of that. So lymph angions are, if you can picture this being a complete circle, like a pipe, and that is your vessel, your lymphatic vessel, and inside the lymphatic vessel, it'll actually have these little sensors in there, and little doors that will open and close, okay? And when they kind of close, they kind of will look more like this. But so they open and close, and when they open and close, and I'm just going to exaggerate that motion by opening like that, but they are really closed, obviously, vessels. But when they kind of open and close, they're going to do that, and when they do that, the whole pipe will actually kind of squeeze and open. And it will move lymph, and those are lymphangions. Now, the biggest thing here to know that you can protect these lymphangions by making sure that you don't carry any heavy shopping totes or whatever, especially plastic, right? Because those are get in there really tight for too long. You don't want to carry them. You're going to break the lymphatic vessels, because we have lymph actually everywhere in our body flowing, and so yeah, that lymph right there below the surface, that will break the little capillaries, and that's where we're going to go into what anchoring filaments are. So anchoring filaments are what they sound like, anchoring little I don't know what to say, little connective tissue or whatever, but little anchors to these flaps that open up. And that's the beginning of the lymphatic system, often referred to in the lacteals, which we'll talk about in a minute here, around the intestines. That's definitely where the lymph starts, but it also can enter into the lymphatic system at any point, and one of the major ways that it enters is through these flaps, through the skin. So if the flaps open with those anchoring filaments there to support it to open and close, they will do that based on hydrostatic pressure in the body changing. So one of the ways that I like to explain this, that I think other people might be sort of familiar with, is like a highway that is just packed with cars, all these different, so it's heavy traffic. One of the ways that we can create that hydrostatic pressure analogy would be if we were to just open up an extra lane, then all the cars would actually, or many of them, would be able to go over that way, and then they would be able to get on the off ramps or go on the on ramps, whatever they needed to. And that's basically how our lymph would move. So these, some hydrostatic pressure, some inward pressure would actually stimulate the lymphatic flow. And then when those flaps open, then lymph would actually come in. So let me show you a graph about that. So here we have basically a good analogy of the cardiovascular system coming in. And in the middle here, right before it turns blue, is the spot in between the cells, and we call that interstitial fluid, and it goes into the lymph system at that point. So we have the heart sort of pumping. So we have sort of the heart pumping, right? And as it pumps fluid, it's actually going to be dumping these really rather large proteins, sticky proteins, and toxins, and anything to keep the blood actually at a specific type of pH balance level. So there's lots of things regulating that, and it says, Mayday, we've got a situation here, we need to get rid of some of these proteins, they're getting stuck in here, we're getting some high blood pressure, the heart starts to feel of that, there's all this like upward pressure that happens, and so it starts actually dumping into the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system's vessels are double the size, they're so much larger than the cardiovascular system, so it's, again, goes into that in between the cells, interstitial space. These flaps are going to open and then take in that fluid, and they're going to become lymphatic fluid, and then that's where that screening and cleaning happens. So back to where it really does start in the gut is something called a lacteal. So a lacteal actually is one of those gut-associated lymph. So we just spent a little time talking about skin-associated lymph, and this is gut-associated lymph. And so right in here, those lacteals actually do a lot of digestion of fats, and that's called chyle. And all along this, basically a tennis court, right? It's so huge and long. And part of the way that it's really long is because there's these little villi, like this is inside a little ball or whatever inside the colon, and sticking out from there is going to be these little finger-like projections that are coming out into the colon. And in there is going to be these lacteals, but also that colon is so long because it actually covers all these little finger-like projections. And if we were to stretch them out really far, right, of course, they're going to be as wide and as long as a tennis court. It's going to be the amount of skin there. And then on there, they have these little feather-like kind of things, and then there's lacteals in there. Along with, and lacteals again are going to be part of that fat absorption element that I'm going to cover. I haven't seen any questions come in, so hopefully you guys are all with me. If anything you're not understanding, let me know. Sometimes I talk really fast. But so then those lacteals are there to convert, and basically they're going to help deal with a lot of those proteins. So one of the ways that I look at this is going to kind of date me, actually, because there used to be this comedian guy who, and I tell stories, hopefully that helps you understand everything, but he was a comedian, and he did these horrible jokes in the 70s on these Ethiopian children that he would see, and they would have those really big bellies, right? And so a big part of that was that you had 2 water molecules for every 1 protein. And these starving children in Ethiopia would have these really big, you know, really thin everywhere else, really big bellies, is because they were actually taking the meat off the bones, that protein, to digest it, to feed themselves. But what was happening, I always used to wonder when I was a kid, why were they so swollen? I didn't understand it at that point. And it's so funny when we have these little questions along our life, too, our body's going to give us those answers if we hold on to those questions that we have. And so lymph was the answer. I didn't know that. So again, it's going to take those proteins that are all through there and break them down and get them back into circulation within the cardiovascular system, wherever they need to go. If the toxins are really bad, and gluten's usually the easiest one to talk about. If you have a lot of gluten in your diet, they're going to rub on those villi. Oh, somebody says that it's not obvious where to add questions. There should be in the comments that you can add questions. I don't know, maybe Elizabeth can help with that. Okay, hopefully I didn't lose my spot. So we have these villi that are digesting the proteins. Shoot, I might have lost my train of thought. So yeah, basically the lymph is gonna break those down and process. Oh, the gluten. So if the gluten's going through there, it's gonna actually rub raw a lot of those villi, and so we're gonna see nutrient absorption go down just from this fact of something that the body doesn't really, it's not very digestible. It's actually going to hit all of those finger-like projections as it's moving through there, and it's going to cause the lymph system to actually work really hard to clean all of those areas. So, not really a big deal. Super remember that number 4 is that the body is powerful, just limited, right? So after a series of dealing with this, and it rubs things raw in there, then it's going to actually start to not be able to break down toxins quite the same way. And the lymph system is going to struggle with that. And guess what it does? It starts to send it to the liver, back to the liver. Let's get these toxins back to the liver so it can do its reconfiguration on the molecules. And that's where we start to see methylation issues for sure. So, because the liver's like, we can't deal with that. So that's a whole nother topic we won't be going into today about the liver and how the lymph works with that. Today we're focusing more on the gut, and also I can't not touch, when we talk about the gut, how our brain health. So I'm going to talk a little bit about brain health. And it looks like we have 20 minutes left, and I haven't seen any questions. Definitely let me know about any questions. You can certainly go to NicoleWorth.com and you can look up some information there. I love to do facials. Usually I do demos in this because, again, I'm more a body worker and assessing like how your lymphatic system is working. Where in the lymphatic system is it breaking down? How is that affecting your immune system? How is your immune system capacity? So everybody has a certain level of capacity. that it can move lymph, that it can function. And all of those things can be assessed. And of course, even one of the lymphatic facials, I call them a facial because of working over the face and where the proteins are the most dense. So again, that's definitely one option. You can also do my new patient assessment series, and I love to do that because it's 2 sessions. I get more opportunity to work with your body, resolve usually an issue or 2, or give a suggestion on how to resolve it in the first appointment, and then the second appointment, we cover more of that. And I'm doing $50 off of either one of those. So, and you would just go into the Schedulicity and make your appointment, or there's not a lot of options online to schedule, so then you would call me, and I'm sure all my contact information is going to be available to you, and you would call me and just schedule either the facial or the new patient assessment series. Those would be the best options for finding out what's going on in your lymphatic system and getting assessed. So outside of that, that's the lacteals, that's happening all in the intestines, what I was talking about. But also in the intestines are sections, I should actually add really quick, so there's pyre patches, a thing called pyre patches all along there. They're just every so often within that tennis court, and in there is where a lot of that lymph is produced. So, so that's really important to know. And they can get damaged is what can happen. So it's not really so much about just the villi getting damaged, but those pyre patches. And those I can feel where they are when I work on you, and which ones are damaged, and how do we repair those, and what do you do outside of the sessions to get them to be repaired. A lot of times people will, at this point, if they've been coming in because they have like an issue around this, allergies or whatever, digestive issues, liver issues, any of those number of things. They come in very frustrated that they've been changing their diet and doing like an elimination diet or something like that. And then they go, like, as soon as they add back in another, food item that was on their do not eat list or whatever for a little while, as soon as they add it back in, everything's a flare up again. And they're like, oh, I guess I didn't wait long enough. A big part of that is along that villi again are other sections within the colon, and those, I thought maybe I might have a picture of them, but I'm not seeing it. I brought all my options in here to hopefully show you guys from past lectures, but I'm not seeing it. I got one more page to check. Yeah, that's too bad. Okay, well, so there's these sections in the colon as well that actually relate to brain. So we're not going to dive into it too much anyways, but the brain is actually what needs to be addressed, and the vagus nerve, and make that connection. And lymph is the thing that connects every body system, I should say. So they're called motor complexes. So if you notice that you eat something and maybe your vision just like feels kind of weird for a second and then it's fine, that would be an indication of the motor complexes being affected. Not just vagus nerve, and I think that's the main thing I want to cover there. So here we have this heart that's pumping, right, and it's dumping into this interstitial space. Just a quick review, because I love to review. It sort of usually cements things in. So it dumps into the interstitial pool, and that's where the capillaries are. And so there's this exchange that's happening. And the flaps are opening, and it's taking in the fluid, and it becomes lymph once it's in the lymph vessels. And it's a one-way system. So that's one way through the skin-associated lymph that it can get in. It's one area in the gut-associated lymph that it can get into, at that capillary exchange where the lacteals are. That's where it can break down and start to enter the lymphatic system. But at the same point that there's these different sort of entry points, if you will, where fluid goes into the lymphatic system and becomes lymphatic fluid at that point, it actually is a one-way system. So pretty squirrely, right? It's like, if you've ever seen a picture of the lymphatic system, it's got all these lines, almost, it's like the perfect thing to wear. It's like this. I mean, it's not exactly like this because it's not straight lines, but they're actually very curly and yeah, so anyways, but so there's all these lines of there. Yeah, it's lymph angion is the pump. But the word, I love that word, and it's right here. Lymph angions. Okay, so it's just different names, but the lymph is in different places in the body. But if we talk about the lymphatic system, oftentimes people don't really start even knowing anything about their lymphatic system until it starts to break down. And one of the reasons, going back to my lymphedema list, top 6, is because number 3, most physicians in the United States are taught about the lymphatic system for 1 hour or less during their 4 years of medical training. So they aren't aware of the impact of the lymphatic system on our immune system. They're not the ones that are actually even stimulating and working on the lymphatic system. They're the ones typically that are cutting into bodies and breaking up. Anytime there's a cut and an incision and a removal of node, for an example, or any type of surgery, those become walls to our drainage system. So one of the biggest ways that I can impact people's immune systems, energy levels, hormone balancing, lots of different ways that we can impact all of these functions that the lymphatic system helps with, is if they've been cut into, because there's nothing really wrong with the lymphatic system. There wasn't a compromised situation of removal of nodes, for an example, or something maybe more drastic. It really is a healthy system. It's just been cut into and in that respect has been compromised. So, but whenever we talk about lymph, we always, it always seems to come up, at least in the lectures I've done before, around cancer. And cancer really can only exit the body through the lymphatic system. So that's really important. It's our cells. Cancer is our own cells. They're going through 12 mutations. And so I think that there are many roads to healing. And I've had lots of people remove nodes and it be successful for them. I think that's great. I'm here to just help you if you've removed nodes, or you would like to try to not remove your lymph nodes. Either way, lymphatic therapy would be amazing. If you're someone that deals with fatigue for a myriad of reasons, and you haven't addressed your lymphatic system, this would definitely be a good time to consider doing it. With $50 off either a facial or $50 off a set of 2 sessions. So definitely go to NicoleWorth.com and check that out. It looks like Elizabeth added it on there. And it looks like we have 13 more minutes, so definitely let me know if you have any other questions. I'm going to go into the 3 ways that our lymphatic system works, because I somehow just missed that in the beginning. I'm so sorry. But blood, I did touch on it, but I didn't name all 3. So blood, it activates lymph function, right? So the heart is pumping and it activates the lymph to move. Here's the thing though, is that within that movement of it happening, if the space isn't there, if we don't have the nutrition, like again, because of allergens rubbing where they enter the body, one of the ways that the skin-associated lymph, that fluid enters the lymph system, then we've got a real problem with the heart actually working really hard to push into something that's full of traffic. There isn't the space and the nutrition to deal with that. So creating space is definitely one of the ways that I work lymphatically with people that makes a big difference. And once we get those toxins out, once we clean out that space and we break down the toxic load, it's changed. It's not going to come back. So pretty amazing. So indirectly stimulates the circulation of the whole body. So lymph, again, indirectly stimulates all of the blood. So kind of funny because we're thinking about the heart pumping, but it would literally break down if the lymphatic system within that skin-associated lymph wasn't able to, those lacteals were not able to break down those proteins or send it to the liver. If it didn't have any option on what to do, you would die within 24 hours. So it's very serious, actually, right? The lymphatic system is a key component to a healing health protocol. So lymphatic drainage reduces edema through the effects of venous return. So if you're waking up in the morning and you're noticing that you're really kind of on the stiff side or you're really achy, that definitely indicates that level of congestion in the body. If you also notice at the end of the day, you wake up and you don't have any swelling or whatever at your ankles, but by the end of the day you have swelling at your ankles, and again, the next day it's all gone, that is the beginning of the lymphatic system starting to break down and indicates lymphatic is needed. Lymphatic therapy is needed. So blood is one of the main functions within the lymphatic system. It's an indirect stimulation on the whole circulation of the body. The immune system is number 2. So lymph into the lymph nodes. So we talked about how it's a one-way system, right, earlier. And so when it's a one-way system, let me pull this back up, just in case I need it. So when it's a one-way system, all the way through there, if it sits there and it pools for a long time, water is a solvent, and it's 93 or 96% water in our lymphatic system is what it's supposed to be, which actually a lot of people are really, really dry. They drink water and it just like goes right through them, like a dry sponge that's sort of being thrown onto water. There's no catalyst to actually take in the water. So again, lymphatic work can help with that as well, can actually allow the body to actually hydrate better. Since adding the harmonic egg, actually, that's one of the main ways that I stimulate the lymphatic fluid if you run really dry, is I actually do that via the harmonic egg. Now, if you, again, the best way to come in and check out what's going on in your immune system is to be assessed first. And then, so if it looks overwhelming and you're like, I don't know if I should do the harmonic egg, I don't know if I should do the facial, do the new patient assessment series where you have 2 opportunities to come in, and one of those could be an egg based on when I look at your intake. So, and talk to you. But so again, number 2, immune system, lymph into the lymph nodes. So we've got lymph that's in these little like river kind of tributaries on the skin and into the body. And they start out as capillaries and they go to those vessels that are one way, meaning that actually they close and they don't allow water back through. So it's those lymph angiones are working to move it one way. And then it gets to these lymph nodes that actually screen and clean everything. And right before they kind of go in there, there's these little, I like to think of them as kind of like bouncers at a club or something. They're like the killer cells. They're the macrophages. They're hanging out there looking for what's passing through. So when we start to do lymphatic fluid, or actually before I say that, we should have about 1 to 3 liters of lymphatic fluid moving through these lymph nodes, right? Moving through the whole lymphatic system, 1 to 3 liters. And that sounds like a lot. It's actually not as much as blood that should be moving through the system. But again, if something's really toxic and really sticky and the person eats like maybe a lot of wrong kinds of fats, it's going to be dumping into the lymph system. We've got a real problem in the lymph system there, of course. But if we've got that happening in the body, those lymph nodes, they're there screening and cleaning. They actually start producing more white blood cell counts and actually start producing more macrophages and more cells that can actually look at all that fluid that's coming through. And so again, when you come in just for a manual lymphatic drainage session, it's going to move about 30 liters in about 40 minutes. So normally every day, if you're healthy, you're not dehydrated, you should be moving about 1 to 3 liters every day. So after 30 days, right, that's a fair amount of fluid that should be moving. But if you came in every 3 days and had manual lymphatic drainage, you would move 30 liters that first day, about 15 the next day, 7 on that third day, about 72 hours later. So you can see why, yes, you can do a few things on your own to stimulate your lymphatic fluid and system, but you're not going to be able to break down toxins the way that I can do that in this office. You're not going to be able to stimulate the liver to be able to function and methylate better. It's not going to be that volume that's moving through those lymph nodes. So you're not going to get that increase in white blood cell counts, which is actually going to boost your immune system as well. So one of the ways that our immune system gets low is, again, having really toxic blood. And so, again, these are red foods that would actually really help that if you're looking for that kind of tip. I still don't see any other questions, so I'm assuming this is all landing very well and beneficial. I am a words of affirmation kind of person. I would love it if you guys would let me know parts of this lecture that were new or things that you really enjoyed. I am going to pop back in this evening and a little bit tomorrow morning and respond to things that I see. If I can answer a question, sometimes it's hard via writing it out, so if it's a real long answer, I probably won't be able to do that. But if it's anything about the lecture, I would love to expand on it. So the third way that our lymphatic system's main functions are, so again, blood was the first one, immune system is the second one. Our third one is our nervous system. So hands down, within about 30 seconds of applying my machine actually to their lymph nodes in here, most people start to, it's about 30 seconds, to flip a lot of their cells over to relaxation and resetting that. What I find in my assessing is that when somebody kind of pushes through boundaries, they stay up later, their body tells them that they're tired, and they do maybe an energy drink or some kind of stimulant, right? Some kind of boost or whatever to more energy, sugar or something like that, an artificial boost. And then they go a little bit longer. What happens is after a while is you actually start to feel, your body starts to feel more normal and healthy, so to speak, when it's actually all the meridian lines are running backwards. And so when somebody comes in, sometimes I can tell that when I start to work on them, I start to actually feel which meridian lines are alarming on the body and saying, hey, well, you've been pushing through these boundaries a little bit too much, and we've been flipping and flowing the wrong way, and that feels normal to us. So again, this is why after one session, a lot of things will reset, and the second session will tell me what the real work is. Like, how many sessions more does this person need to reset their nervous system, reset their immune system, and boost it in a way where it would actually, the toxins are out and it can maintain it. And then also what's going on in the blood. So I'm actually find it fascinating, and I'm doing it, but I can actually feel what's happening in the vessels. So inside our cardiovascular veins or arteries, right, inside that system, there is actually lymphatic vessels that are in there. And as a lymphatic specialist, there are things that I feel that are happening in the body, and I know they're familiar, and I know what to do with them, but they don't have a name in the textbook. So I've known about these for a long time, but I think it was, I forget exactly when they were discovered. But it's such a tiny system in many ways, sort of discounted system, I should say. And so it's quite fascinating what they're attaching science to around the lymphatic system. But so it decreases stress, nervous system coming in for lymphatic work. It stimulates relaxation. And again, such a high volume. So again, 1 to 3 liters normally. If you get a manual lymphatic drainage session, it's going to go up 30 liters in 40 minutes. And then I can move with my machine, I can move 12 times as much lymph. Which is staggering, that we can break down scarring. It's non-invasive. It causes the hydrostatic low-level current pressure. So there's ionic current that's added into the body that causes that hydrostatic pressure. So I'll actually feel the lymph system actually opening up. I'll feel maybe, like I had somebody recently come up from California to work with me, and they had some nodes around their knee and hip that weren't opening, but I could feel a lot of the other lymph nodes opening. And I was just working on the face. I was just doing a facial on this person. So it's quite amazing when you can actually start to feel where there's movement and where there's not movement within the lymphatic system. But it basically adds a negative charge into the body, which will actually help reset and clean the blood. At the same time, it'll create the space and open up the lymphatic system. So these glass bulbs, again, they run along the skin. Looks like we're almost out of time. They run along the skin and they just add in, it's so soothing, and it goes 6 to 8 inches deep. It moves again about 12 times more lymphatic fluid than manual does. You can actually do a lymphatic session with me 1 every 24 hours. I often have clients fly in, which I'm so humbled by, but they will fly in and I will treat them for the weekend. So a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or something like that. And they'll sightsee and different things like that, and whole families. So I can treat as young as 6 months. And gosh, I think the oldest person I've ever treated, which is funny actually even to give like ages, because there's some old souls, right? And they're really young people, and then maybe some immature older people, right? So anyways, by age is kind of funny. But okay, so I know I was going somewhere with this, but so it does stimulate urine to flow. It does stimulate the kidneys to let go, because again, when we actually create the space, we're not adding in the nutrition at that point, but we are chemically and electronically adding in what the body needs with the charge that we're adding into the body. So pretty amazing that we start to cause a detox. I see here it says, how do you feel after a session? So again, that's something that I often manage with the new patient assessment series. I have somebody come in and they just get a facial, just that upper collarbones, the venous drain, where the proteins are the most thick usually and the most rich. And so we break that all down and get that flowing. And just by doing that, I'm able to assess a lot of the lower body. And then I work the face, all these lymph nodes all along the jaw, any kind of ear pain, even vision issues. And obviously I can tell a lot of what's happening around the brain. We didn't really go into the brain a whole lot, but 60% of the lymphatic fluid from the brain should actually flow through, not through the skin here, but actually dips down into the Waldeier's rings, which are like andoids, tonsils, those kinds of things. Even if they're removed, it'll actually go that way. And the base of the tongue is another one, kind of near the vocal cords. And it's kind of this, it's called the Waldeier's ring because it's kind of a ring. So about 60% of the brain detoxing during a facial, I'll actually feel what's happening with that brain. At night, if we're getting enough sleep, the brain actually will contract quite a bit, and then that's when the lymph will flow. So I'll actually feel those contractions in the brain and can assess what's going on with the brain. Again, lymphatic fluid is everywhere almost in the body. There's just a few spots that it's not directly draining, and then even those spots that are indirectly draining. So every system is impacted by the drainage system. And Tiffany says, where do I find or can I get? So right, if you can scroll up above, there's a comment there that Elizabeth left on how to get a hold of me. But it is my name, NicoleWirth. So we have that right here, NicoleWirth.com. And then, sorry if I'm getting you all over the place. Let's see here. Oh, just a second. I guess I can't pull it back. Sorry if anybody's getting dizzy. So basically, the assessment is the best. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. So the assessment is the best option usually to come in, because we can do a lot of different things to help move the lymphatic system that I don't have on my website. But that being said, the harmonic egg I'll just talk about for a few minutes. It's really a technology that uses sound, vibroacoustics, frequency, color therapy, and a resonant chamber. And you can go to Harmonic Egg Northwest Center and look at that, which is actually at my website, which again is my name. Okay, and so this is where I would sign up for the new patient assessment series, which you'll see is $210, but it's going to be $50 less. So, oh my goodness, $160. And that'll be for 2 separate lymphatic sessions. Okay, so super cool. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question. This is where I would go for sure to check out the new patient assessment series. You can also do, like I said, a facial. And basically that's going to be those venous drains and the face. And really that's going to end up being, like I said, brain, ears, eyes. It's actually going to be the base of the head, which is a whole separate area. But then you're also going to get sinuses and all of those. Now, something to know here about the assessment, like I said, is about assessing the meridian lines and how they're flowing. Is a lot of our digestion is on here. So on the face, they flow or start or stop around the face. And so a lot of times just having a facial will actually help improve digestion. Again, all things that kind of just come a part of the assessing. But if you did want to come in and check out my harmonic egg, you would get to at least see it. It's all in the same office. And this is my harmonic egg, which I've had 2 years. It's actually like a little room that you would sort of step into. So I'm going to roll that out, and you can kind of see that there is a chair in here, and it might even sound a little echoey. But you would actually have a seat in a chair here and recline back. And then there's a speaker over here, which would play very gentle. It's not like a subwoofer, which sometimes people are like, oh, I thought there was going to be like this bass noise or something. But it's not going to be like that. Everything vibrates, everything moves, everything has a frequency to it. So those are all the same things when we're talking about sound and we're talking about light. And then things that we can't hear are actually still vibrating, whether we can hear them or not. And so super interesting. So then we have another speaker over here. So something to point out is that there's nothing blocking that speaker, and it looks like there's all this space here, but actually all these vibrations and frequencies are going to fill here when we start to play, and that's why there's a little bit of an echo, because there's no vibrations and frequencies that are filling it with the music. And it's vibroacoustic because it's made of wood. So here is the door again, and we would actually close that. And again, it's like a little room that you're stepping into. Is super soothing. I've had people go to sit down and not want to come out, which may seem hard to believe. But if you were encased in like your mom's womb again as a baby, you would feel so soothed and relaxed, and it would be wonderful, and you would not want to leave, right? We didn't want to leave when we were born. Most babies cry when they get out of that real cocoon soothing area. So let me see if I missed any questions. Is that why it's common to feel the need to swallow after getting facial? Oh yeah. So when you're swallowing, again, just a quick note here, that when we talk about like the facts of lymphatic system, it's a highly compensatory system. So it compensates for a lot of things. So, there's a way that it's supposed to be functioning, and then there's just how your immune system is functioning, and everybody's immune system is dramatically different. But if everything was completely healthy, 60% of the fluid actually go down those Waldeier's rings. And that's one of the reasons is because the body realizes that it can't, one of the ways that it could break down is that it realizes that it can't go through the skin. That 40% is even struggling. And then again, this is how I will know how the lymph system is working. Where is it backed up? Is it moving 60% out of the brain through the Waldeier's rings? Which part of the Waldeier's rings are breaking down? Is it real thick? So sometimes honey is how the lymph system will feel, real kind of tacky, but obviously moving. Or it'll be maybe more of even thicker or more tacky, and it will be more like molasses. And then it can be, completely water fluid, and I can actually feel that as the heart is pumping and it's dumping 10% is what it's supposed to be dumping, 10% of that protein-rich fluid to get it screened and cleaned will be dumping into the lymphatic system. Actually, it'll be more than 10%. It will dump more than 10% into those interstitial pools, but it will be 10% that the lymphatic system flaps will open up in the skin-associated lymph, and it will take it in. I'll be able to actually feel what percentage somebody is at. So kind of cool. And I should say too, when I say I can feel that, every body talks to me a little bit different. So if I treat somebody and they're like, boy, I really want to know a lot about my brain, I want to know what's going on, whatever you can tell me. And I might set that intention, like this body, this person wants the body to talk to me about this specific thing without sounding too woo-woo maybe, a little bit here. The body is got its own checklist of things to work on. And that's another reason why I love to do too, because when they come in, they have that checklist. The body has that checklist of things, but we open up and we move things in the body in a way where it starts re-changing its operating systems, and it operates different, even if you just come in for the two, and you don't continue to come in or whatever. So let me see, it looks like I have another question. In relation to the brain lymph and where it travels. So it actually is, you're swallowing it when it goes through the Waldeier's ring, because it's actually going to go into the tummy. So hopefully that answers your question there. Oh yeah, you're welcome. It looks like I did. Okay, thanks Natalie for your questions. I don't think I missed any question. So yeah, let me see if there's anything else I really feel like I need to cover. Yeah, I think that's it. So I would love to work on all of you guys, to show all of you guys how amazing your bodies actually are, and that they were just getting maybe some limitations. They just needed to create some space, really relax, change how the flow is happening in the body. And I guess the last thing I could end with, I didn't do the last 3 lymphodemas. I guess that's it. I thank you so much for listening to my chat, and I look forward to meeting or talking with any of you guys. I did have one other announcement, and I think Elizabeth said that she was going to mention this, is that I have just started an online Facebook group where I do just mini little exercises, if you want to call them, or protocols, just one a day for a 3-day workshop, and I'm doing those once a month. And it's free if you just want to click the link, answer a few questions so that I know where I met you and where you're from, and maybe some health concerns that you might have, so I know who's sort of my audience that are being added to the group. And it's a free group that you can join, and I would love to meet you guys there as well. So take care, and I will pop back into the group and answer any questions that maybe come up.